You can have joy in depression. Chris from the band Rend Collective shares more on episode 138 of Manly with Andy. So honored to have Chris from Rend Collective, such a great band. And it's funny because you guys have so much joy in your songs, but you have still gone through some bouts of depression and had some mental health struggles. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But Chris, I like to start every conversation with the question, what do you think is the biggest challenge that men face today, and how do we overcome it?
I think everybody acknowledges there's kind of a crisis of masculinity right now, in the sense that men don't quite know what we're allowed to be. Like, I think we all recognize that toxic masculinity is a real thing, but I don't know if a really viable alternative has been explained to us very well. So it's almost like there's a lot of don'ts and there's not a lot of do's. Like, I feel like we haven't been at this point yet. We're part of a cycle where we're challenging a lot of the negative behaviors of the past, without really being able to draw a really good roadmap for the future. Reminds me of like kind of any deconstruction movement. When you start to pull something apart, that can be healthy, but it's not healthy if you stop there. But yeah, I mean, I think that to me that's the biggest challenge facing men right now is knowing not so much knowing what they're not supposed to be, but knowing what they're supposed to be. As I talk to men, I find that there's kind of a lot of I'm seeing a lot of depression, which, a lot of people would say that depression is anger turned inward, or anger not allowed to manifest itself, or frustration not allowed to manifest itself. And so I think until we get good at really expressing the frustration of trying to find our place in society again, I wonder if that depression's really ever going to go away, or if we're just going to keep seeing really negative expressions of masculinity.
I know you guys have this new song, Fight of My Life, and I was watching your stories talking about it on socials, and you say it could be the most joyful song about depression you've ever heard.
Yeah.
So talk about how can you be joyful when you're talking about things like that?
The misunderstanding sometimes around maybe depression is the idea that it's the exact opposite of joy, or that sadness is the exact opposite of joy. Whereas the reality of us all is that we're all kind of complicated, aren't we? It's all interwoven. And the weird part, I think, of the life of faith in particular is that there's some kind of mysterious stuff that happens where even at rock bottom, God can still break in and shine light, and you can find yourself singing your way through circumstances you'd never imagined that anybody could sing through. So I suppose the short answer is it's complicated, but I think for me, the songs that I needed during my mental health struggle weren't necessarily sad songs, because I was really good at coming up with those by myself. But the things that helped me move through it were actually maybe a bit bolder, more anthemic, and maybe pushing me a little bit towards joy. Not ignoring or trying to dismiss that there's hard things happening, but still getting that nudge towards joy and that nudge towards a little bit of positive energy was something that really helped me. And so I suppose I wanted to incorporate that in the song, is that it wouldn't be something that would leave somebody feeling heavier afterwards, but that would leave them feeling a bit lighter.
Yeah, I think I like that. There is a delicate balance of, hey, you're going through a tough time, I get it, and you want to mourn with those who mourn. Yes. But I like that you say, I like that word nudge. Talk a little bit more about that. What is that? How did God nudge you?
Yeah, towards joy. Well, I think about the opposite, right? Because for years, I struggled with depression for a long time in the band and didn't talk about it, because I thought it was a source of shame, that it meant that I was doing Christianity wrong. I've since learned that 90% of our Bible characters, if you pay any kind of attention, all have what read like mental health struggles in the Bible, although I'm not going to go around diagnosing 2,000-year-old stories. But I felt it as a source of shame. And so for a while I didn't nudge. I try to force joy home into my life. So there's whole seasons of our songwriting that are about choosing joy. And that's not wrong. It's just, it's not always the prescription to try and crush down sadness. Sadness does deep holy work in us if we let it do, if we let it. And I think for years I tried to force joy home as though it was the only correct feeling to be having. I didn't realize that they all had a place. And so yeah, I would say that's why I'm much gentler with it now. If I like to open up the possibility for joy, and I feel like things that did that for me were actually, ironically, probably talking to a therapist. God and therapy, I think, are a great combination. I'll just leave that as a side note. But speaking to a therapist and being allowed to speak about negative emotions weirdly did nudge open that door for joy. Once you allow yourself the permission to feel whatever you want to feel, there's something very freeing about that. And it actually, rather than making joy go away, I think it opens up a path for an authentic joy.
I love that you also posted recently about you guys playing in a pub, and you said, it's our belief that there are no godless spaces, just places where you have to look a little harder. And I know that's kind of, how long have you guys been a band now? That you've been kind of doing this your whole time, right?
Yeah. So 2009, I think officially, if I was to look back on the first time I signed anything, it was probably about then. So yeah, long time. It actually started off with a lot of playing in pubs and clubs in Ireland was how we began. And it's strange once you start to open up your eyes a little bit, you just realize that God's doing incredible things all over the place. You know, not just where you expect it.
Did you start there because that's the only place you could go? Or was that more of I have a heart for these people?
Yeah, at the time, it was really missional. So I suppose what we thought was that we were like these white knights going into this horrendously dark place, and we were going to battle back the demonic forces, and we were going to rescue everybody. And now I realize it was probably a little gentler than that. There was a lot of good already happening in those pubs and clubs. The things that I saw that were so healthy in those spaces were that people were willing to talk about their spiritual journeys and be fully honest about where they were at. They didn't feel any need to pretend, like sometimes I think we feel like we need to in church. And I think that's a healthier starting point. If we can at least be honest about what we're experiencing, I think that's the beginning of having a real relationship with God. And so many times, even now, we always make time to play in the pubs and the clubs in the UK and Europe in particular. And we've seen bar staff and people like that actually come to faith during our concerts, which is incredible. And it says something about the openness and the receptiveness to the Holy Spirit that actually people have outside the church. You know, we haven't got a monopoly on that.
And I wonder, I'd be interested to hear what kind of conversations you have in those spaces, because I'm not in those spaces necessarily, but I would just imagine, as you said, you know, these people, they know that what they're, you know, maybe they can tell they're broken and that there's not that need to be buttoned up. So what do you hear when you're in these spaces that you think, hey, people that are Christians, this is how you can better love these people in these spaces?
There kind of is a universal mental health crisis. I think that's the conversation I'm having both inside and outside the church too. It's just inside the church, I think there's more shame and stigma. So yeah, I think a lot of people are struggling with that mental health stuff and just the overall, you know, we all, people our age, lived through a pandemic. We've experienced a lot of change and a lot of challenging things. And those are kind of the conversations that I'm having. The thing that I would say that we're bringing to those conversations isn't even spiritual curiosity or even spiritual experiences. What we're bringing is a name and a pathway to being able to actually pursue that with more clarity. So people, there's a lot of spiritual people hanging out in pubs and clubs who just haven't put the name of Jesus onto it. And once you do that, it's so powerful when you see that click and people realize, oh my goodness, that's the name for this thing I've been chasing, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I love this. You guys also posted something on Good Friday talking about how Jesus, his message was of love and compassion for the last and the least, but that's not what got him in trouble. It was his courage to express love for the last and the least by challenging the very systems that made them the last and the least in the first place. And you talked about, you know, your song Holy Trouble. So
yeah,
I think so often as a Christian, I'm supposed to be a nice guy.
Right.
Jesus wasn't that way. So, you know, how do we break that stereotype and that barrier of just trying to people please and think that that's what Jesus wants us to do.
It's interesting because there's a balance in there of like, in a sense, yes, Jesus absolutely was a nice guy in the sense of if you happen to be the poor or the oppressed or somebody who society had kicked to the margins, very nice guy. But at the same time, if that's all you do and you're passive around injustice, if you're passive around injustice, nobody's going to crucify you. You don't get executed for being Fred Rogers. You get a PBS series that lasts 30 years. What'll get you in trouble is when you ask for change from people who are in power. And I think that's a responsibility that Christians have always had, is to learn how and when to wisely use their voice to affect change in society.
Was there a moment, and you kind of talked a little bit about the pandemic and how we've been through so much lately, but was there a moment with your band where you nearly walked away, and what kept you going?
Yeah, there absolutely was. I mean, a few years ago, a couple of the founding members decided to step away for various reasons, and it seemed like this could be a good time to, this is a logical time to call it. There's some of us are moving on, and maybe I should too. And I just remember being in the car, just driving home from the gym, and just it's weird how God speaks to you, and how you have these weird moments where you're not expecting it at all, and it just comes in from left of field. But I remember him giving me just this sentence of the worship is what you're made for. And eventually what I was made for, that became a song. I wrote a lot of it in the car and that journey home, just in my head. And it was just a powerful reminder that I think we're all made to worship, but in a very specific way. It was just it spoke to me of the fact that, well, what else am I going to do? It's either this, or it's either I do this as a job, or I do this and nobody hears it. There's no option for me to not write songs and sing them.
Chris, what is the most boring fact about you?
Oh man, that's a topic, that's a fruitful topic. A lot of meat on the bone there. I would say you would be stunned at how much my whole dream in life is to get to bed by 9 p.m.
9 p.m. is the perfect time for you.
Oh man, yeah. If I can be in bed with a book at 9 p.m., that's the dream. I think probably that is the biggest sacrifice that I make to be on the road, is that I have to stay up late and talk to people and entertain people way, way past my bedtime. I'm getting grumpier. I'll be 40 this year, and there's a lot of stuff that's just getting, I've just got curmudgeonly takes.
All right, what is your oldest old man take where you're not just turning 40 this year, but you could be turning 80?
I'm even scared to say this in case it goes out into the ether, but I refuse to engage with TikTok. It's just a bridge too far. That's it. I'm willing to I acknowledge it exists, but this is me. I'm stepping off the train now.
So no engagement, no watching them, no. Does it your band or someone in your band say, all right, we need to make some TikTok content, right? That's what the kids watch.
I'll make reels, and then I'll allow those reels to be sent to TikTok. But I can't go on there myself. It's a bridge too far. It's the same with, I just feel like I'm not going to engage with any kind of neural link. I've already made my decision about that. This is it.
So when you pass away, your brain isn't going to be, I don't know, like cryogenically frozen at some point.
No, this is it. Not even. No, this is it. I feel like I'm not interested in new restaurants anymore. That's that's a new development. I just want to revisit the same experiences that I've always had.
So have you gotten to the point now where you'll get the same thing at the same thing every time you go to the restaurant?
Outback Steakhouse, my order hasn't changed in 10 years. And on the road, I'm going there a lot. That Outback special, 6 ounces. You don't need to mess it. There's no point having a giant steak. 6 ounces is as much as anybody's ever wanted of that.
Okay, well, Outback, a bloomin' onion, yes or no?
Yes. I have a tour story related to a bloomin' onion, which is that at our poorest, I thought nothing of this, but basically there were 2, and I had assessed relatively clean girls who had eaten maybe 6 petals of their bloomin' onion and then left, leaving the bloomin' onion on the opposite table. And so I had a crisis where I was like, well, I'm going to order one, but that's a perfectly good bloomin' onion over there. So I went over and grabbed it, but I got spotted by the waiters. And she was so grossed out by it, and that she comped us one.
She felt bad for you.
Yeah, but there was so much shame. And I wasn't really, I didn't feel the shame until it was brought to light. You know, it's just like, that's perfectly good blooming onion over there.
I feel like there's also there's a spiritual message with that too. There was no shame until it was brought to light.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. We need others to point out where we're going wrong.
Yeah. And don't covet your neighbor's blooming onion.
True. Although they didn't appreciate it. They didn't know what they had.
You're on the road a lot and you're making music, and that's a full-time job and then some. And I'm sure you there's times where you just feel like you're drained. So when you pour out so much every night, doing, as you said, something that is not natural for you because you'd rather be in bed at 9 p.m., but you're on stage, what does it look like when you need to refill your own cup?
I just find I need a lot of time by myself. I really resonate with Jesus's touring career. Like, that is a man who spent a lot of effort trying to get away from the crowds. And it's not that he doesn't like people or that I don't like people. It's just that it's what it takes to be able to really bring your best self to others, is that you do have to just, whether it's getting up early, whether it's staying up late, you just need to make sure that you are giving yourself the time that you need to be a healthy person. And I think that brings in all kinds of practices like meditation and prayer and reading. I think having those practices in place just makes you a healthier human being. But I wouldn't be able to survive on the road without it. I do have to be pretty intentional. If I don't work at it, I can find myself in community all day, every day. We live on the bus, so like, if you don't carve out time for yourself, there will be none. And you don't realize how much that kind of costs your battery until it's fully depleted.
You aren't addicted to your phone, but you can stop using it 24/7. It'd be good for all of us, wouldn't it? Joey Odom shares more on the next episode of Manly with Andy.